whether you like our form of government or not, there is a check and balance, and part of that is the whistleblower program.
Do you think that Joe Biden is badly compromised by the Communist Party of China?
I don't have that information. I do know that China's playing for keeps.
We had these 51 intelligence people sign this letter that believing that this Hunter Biden laptop story, just weeks before the election, was Russian disinformation.
If the people in government just did their jobs, we would be way better off.
But new revelation that the Biden for President campaign helped organize the VIP letter that spread disinformation about Hunter Biden's laptop. And then there's new information from a congressional committee that at least 9 and perhaps a dozen or more members of Joe Biden's family were involved in receiving substantial payments from foreign governments. It's all on the eve of President Biden's announcing that he will run for a second term. Former Senator Scott Brown from Massachusetts joins us now with more on this. Scott, good to see you.
It's great to be here live with you.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for coming down to Dallas.
Happy.
Let's start with this new revelation from the Hunter Biden laptop story that a whistleblower from the IRS has now come forward to at least 4 congressional committees and apparently wants to spill the beans about how the Biden family and the Hunter Biden laptop investigation did not follow standard procedure at either the IRS or the Department of Justice.
Well, it is disturbing. I understand there's potentially more IRS agents want to do the same thing because whether you like our form of government or not, there is a check and balance, and part of that is the whistleblower program. And in your intro, you said, why are people losing trust in our institutions? Well, because there's 2 sets of rules. There's sets of rules for people like the Bidens who can do what they're doing, getting the foreign monies with not really, kind of murky, not understanding quite why 9 or 12 people would be getting, millions of dollars from the Chinese government. And then you see what's happening with, obviously, Blinken getting involved in that 51 leaders, intelligence leaders, before the election, potential election interference. If that would be us, Trump, or anyone else, they'd be in jail or fined or whatever.
This
and
is a very
nothing
important,
happened. Yeah.
Very important component to this story because we had these 51 intelligence people sign this letter that believing that this Hunter Biden laptop story, just weeks before the election, was Russian disinformation. They signed their names to this document. We now know that it was now Secretary of State Anthony Blinken who was behind the crafting of that letter, and he had Jeff Morrell, the then acting CIA director, do it. It stinks to high heaven.
It's worse than that. I believe it's election interference. I know Secretary Blinken. As you know, I worked for the State Department. I was the ambassador for almost 4 years in New Zealand, Cook, Niue, and Samoa. And I always felt that the State Department had a higher level of service and integrity. And to hear things like this, it's deeply disturbing. And this is another reason why people don't trust the government. And he should make a full and under oath explanation to Congress, and I hope they subpoena him to find out what he did and why, because it was able to be used by then Vice President Biden days before the election to say, oh, listen, 51 people have signed off. It's nothing, nothing, nothing. And we're finding out as the layers of the onions are being peeled back that it is something.
And now we know, according from the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, that it looks like 12 members of the Biden family were profiting somehow from these offshore industries, these limited liability corporations that Hunter Biden and other members of the Biden family were getting paid for from totalitarian governments in many respects.
Well, listen, there are reasons for disclosure, and there is reasons to file disclosure forms. When I was a U.S. Senator and an ambassador, you knew everything about me. I had to resign from every single board. And so did my wife, had to make disclosures as well. These disclosures need to have been done, and if they weren't done, then that's a very serious violation. And they need to be held accountable, just like everybody else. Once again, if it were anyone else that did not have the name Biden behind them, they would be in very, very deep trouble. And the American people deserve better.
And now, coincidentally, we hear that Hunter Biden's lawyers are going to be paying a visit to the Department of Justice, coincidentally, just this week.
Well, I don't know if it's a coincidence because I think the heat is turning up.
Yeah.
And they're obviously going to try to do whatever they can to probably lessen the charges or try to find some type of plea deal. But I think the one way to restore the belief in the American system of justice in those departments, Justice, FBI in particular, is to actually, do your job. No disrespect to your viewers. I am a Patriots season ticket holder since '85. But one thing Bill Belichick says is just do your job. And if the people in government just did their jobs, we would be way better off.
You talked about the double standard here, the two tiers of justice that we're seeing in this country. I wonder how this is going to play out with the whistleblower, because you will recall during the Trump administration, there was another whistleblower who blew the whistle on this phone call that President Trump had with the president of Ukraine, and how that whistleblower was treated by the Democratic Party. How will the Democratic Party treat this whistleblower?
Well, I know that I actually went to London and spoke at Oxford University at a big debate, and I do know the lieutenant colonel you're referring to. And yeah, he told me about his experiences thereafter. If someone's going to come forth as a whistleblower, regardless of what you think about them politically, you have to listen to it, because it takes a tremendous amount of courage, 9 times out of 10, for someone to basically put their entire life, their family's life, under the microscope of the mainstream media in the Democratic and Republican parties, depending on whose side you're on. So once again, for me, it's a trust but verify. Let's find out what the whistleblower has to say. Let's bring him before Congress, have him swear under oath. Let's have those other people also come forward, and let's get to the truth. The American people deserve that.
Do you have any insight on who this whistleblower is? From what I've read, he is not a political actor. He's
a regular guy. He's trying to do his job. There's
Right.
still people out there in the federal government that just want to do their jobs.
Right. And his lawyer apparently is
Legit.
legit. He's not a partisan actor either. He's represented both
Yeah.
Republicans and Democrats. If anything, on balance, he's
So more to follow. Let's get it done.
Right. So give me a sense from your experience in the Senate. Of course, this investigation is primarily going to be going on in the House of Representatives, because the Republicans control that. But what is the course of any investigation that happens in Congress right now? We see so many cases where allegedly bombshell information and sort of fizzles out altogether.
Yeah.
Administrations die, members of Congress come and go, and you never.
Well, you
find
saw
out
what happened to President Trump, impeached a couple of times. You had Adam Schiff and others, doing their whatever they did. I didn't agree with it. I didn't watch it much. But there is a check and balance, and the fact that the Republicans control the House, they have the ability to bring these things to light. Do you think that they would be brought to light if there was not a Republicans weren't in charge of the House? So our system is working in that respect. But don't forget, the American people didn't send the Republicans just to talk about a laptop in the House. They sent them down there to deal with our debt and deficit, with the border, with our national security, our foreign policy, our illegal immigration. There's so many things out there that we have to address in such a short period of time. The Democrats want to raise your debt and your deficit. When I was there, it was $9 trillion national debt. It's 32 trillion now. We can't keep this up.
Senator Ron Johnson was quoted as saying something really fascinating recently about the Congressional Committee's attempts to get a hold of the bank records of the Biden family, and that they were getting lots of cooperation from Chinese banks, which the Bidens have been doing business with, but not so much cooperation from American banks.
Yeah, listen, I'm not surprised, but there are records out there that do show things that haven't been disclosed, and it's going to obviously lead to more. And I would encourage the American banks, once again, just to do their jobs. If you've been subpoenaed, adhere to the subpoena, and let's get this up. Transparency is the thing that makes everything work.
Senator Johnson's point in doing that is that his contention is the Chinese banks are delivering this information to him and to other congressional investigators because they want the President of the United States, Joe Biden, to know that they have information on him. Do you think that Joe Biden is badly compromised by the Communist Party of China?
I don't have that information. I do know that China's playing for keeps, and they'll do and say whatever they can do to get an upper hand and basically be the #1 power in this world. And we got to wake up and pay attention and fight harder.